Hey virtual pilots, and welcome back to another live stream. Today we're doing a grass landing challenge. This is 4 airports from Burning Blue Designs, all located around London in what is quite a busy, congested bit of airspace. And we've used Sky Demon, I don't know why I always refer to myself in the third person. I've used Sky Demon, which is a piece of software that real world private pilots use to plan flight routes with visual flight rules. I'll be taking you through all of that. We're deliberately trying to avoid all of the airspace, the control zones, in particular Gatwick, albeit we are landing at an airport that is located awfully close to Gatwick, but we've planned the route. I've planned the route to try and avoid that airspace. So just looking at my notes, we're starting off at White Waltham. And these are all grass airstrips. We'll be flying down to Popham, which is not far from where I was born, just south of Basingstoke, then on to Redhill, which is an airport that is actually nestled just under the control zone for Gatwick, and then finally on to Rochester. Rochester's got quite an interesting approach. It's got a dual carriageway, a split lane road, both of which are at different elevations, and actually the terrain is sort of quite steep as you arrive there and then drops off quite quickly. And all of these airstrips are actually quite tricky to see because they're grass airstrips, right? They blend into the countryside around them. As always, this is an alcohol-fueled stream. I really do need to mix it up a little bit because it's another Sauvignon Blanc, albeit an octopusy one. Don Simon Nature we've got today. So let's have a see. An assortment of fresh and nice aromas, both fruity and floral, that will leave a very refreshing memory on the palate. That of a young Sauvignon Blanc. And I can confirm it's okay. It's not great, but it's adequate. So we shall top our glass up. And without further ado, I think we will jump into the sim. I'm planning to do full stop landings at each of the airstrips that I'm landing at today. That'll give me an opportunity to jump out the sim, come and check the chat, answer any questions that you've got. It's about 10 minutes or so between each one. I think that this will take us maybe a little over an hour, maybe a bit longer. So there should be plenty of opportunity for interaction and chat as well. But let's get ourselves off over into the sim. Okay, just making sure the audio is still working. It appears that it is. Grand. Okay, so I've taken a screenshot of the Sky Demon flight path that I've planned out. We're starting here in White Waltham, nestled not far from London Heathrow's controlled airspace, but you can see we're deliberately going southwest. Straight away from that, we're going to stay under all of these controlled zones down into Popham. There is a military controlled zone here around Basingstoke, but it's not active all of the time, so for the purpose of this flight it's not going to be active. We're going to do a full stop landing at Popham. We're going to do a proper overhead join, traffic pattern and land, then routing ourselves round all of this controlled airspace here, making use of a VOR here, connecting on the 87 degree radial. We'll come in on there, then out at 6 degrees, up to this visual reference point, and then across here. This is Gatwick, so making sure that we stay jolly well clear of that, and then into into what is, I think, the biggest airstrip, the biggest grass airstrip in Europe, I believe, which is Redhill. Then across here, sort of northeast east, over to Rochester. All grass airstrips, all relatively challenging. So that's our route today. We've got about 50 tanks are about 55% full. So let's get our battery and our alternator on. We'll get our beacon on before we start our aircraft up. We're going to want to go high RPM and full rich. I think I switched the tanks on. I did. So our beacon is on. Don't want the... Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned, we're in the Bonanza V35B. Just released by Coronado as the latest local legend. About 14 UK pounds on the store. Been flying this aircraft loads over the last few days. It's not quite up to the standard of some of the aircraft that you might pay 25 or 30 pounds for, but it is a lower cost, and it's a great little aircraft. I've honestly had loads of fun with the unique V-tail design. We'll talk a bit more about that, but you don't want the fuel pump on during startup. You want it on fuel peak, and then start your engine. And you don't have it on. You don't have it on during takeoff and landing either. So let's get some avionics on, and let's get the rest of those lights on. Okay, good. Right, so let's plan our first route. We've got a little guide here off of Sky Demon, so we're going to want to be flying a heading of 223 degrees. Get a heading bug on there. Okay, ready for our taxi now. So let's just have a quick look at White Waltham Aerodrome. So we are just here, parked up just behind runway 29. We're going to taxi our way through this aircraft parking for departure off of runway 25 right. That's going to take us away from the absolutely horrendous local traffic area. So we want to steer well clear of this London control zone, and that starts from the surface upwards. We don't want to go anywhere near that. So we've got our taxi route. We're conscious of local airspace. Let's get our taxi light on. Cowl flaps are open, and let's get ourselves taxiing. Great payware scenery from Burning Blue Designs. I'm increasingly finding that I think my niche is small grass bush type flying, whether that's like the Papua New Guinea stuff that we've done in the past. This obviously in the UK around London. Did buy myself the 737-600, which is frankly brilliant value for money for an airliner of that detail. So I'm in the process of trying to get my head around that. They're very, very, very complicated aircraft. I do just find it's a little bit more just pushing buttons than ideally I would like. There's something about GA aircraft and flying it that I find genuinely very, very, very good fun. get our parking brake on for 1 second. Just gonna make sure, yep, you've got game audio coming through. Grand. Right, okay, let's do our run up. 1700 RPM. And check our magnetos. We're looking for less than 150 RPM drop. Got almost no drop off of that one at all. And less than 50 difference between them. Yep, that's all looking good, and back to idle, and the engine shouldn't cut. Okay, looking good. Right, get our taxi lights off, landing lights on, parking brake is off. Get ourselves lined up on 25 right. Very distinctive tree line here that makes the departure off of this runway it's a little bit easier to manage. It is well marked on the ground as well. Okay, I think we're good to go. Okay, T's and P's are in the green, takeoff power is set. Airspeed is coming live. 70 knots rotate. Out of usable runway, landing gear is coming up. I'm going to start our timer. And we're going to climb ourselves up to that starts 2,500, so we'll go 2,400. Give ourselves 100 feet of clearance. Not the most elegant climb of my life. Bringing manifold pressure back to 25 inches and the RPM back to 2,500. We can get those landing lights off now. Could choose to leave them on if you so wished. Top tip there, don't suddenly look down at your charts whilst you're manually in a climb. Concentrate on doing that. Task saturation. Okay, just pushing a little bit of the throttle in as we climb. As we gain altitude, the air pressure is going to get thinner, and manifold pressure is going to drop. Okay, coming up on 2,300 feet. And coming up on 2,400, back to 23 inches of manifold pressure, 2,300 RPM, and we will level ourselves off. Get our autopilot on. Heading, hold, and altitude hold. Grand. Now, I must show you the Very interesting approach plate for Popham. Popham doesn't feature in the normal publication of airport information, so I found this online. I think this is a little out of date, but it's July, I assume that's July 2020, so adequate for our purposes. But look at this traffic pattern. I mean, it is not a rectangular pattern. You have this runway 8, runway 26, and then off at an angle you've got this runway 3, runway 21, and as a result you kind of end up doing this. I can't even remember the geometry of that shape, but it's not a standard rectangular traffic pattern, but that's absolutely fine. There is a set of rather large silos that you use to identify it, given that it's a grass strip. Can be quite tricky to find, so just using our nav needle there so that we've got a sense of the perspective of where the runway is going to be. We're not using our GPS today, but I'm going to use it as an aid to locate the airstrip. An aid only, not doing the full navigation for us. So it's a little trek over there, but not a long one. Great aircraft, the Bonanza. Fast in cruise, so we've got an indicated airspeed of 150 knots. That's fairly typical for this aircraft. She's quite slow though as you come in for final approach. You can be all the way down to oh, excuse me. My apologies, that must have sounded horrendous. A little touch of hay fever going on there. So yeah, she's quite slow in the approach. But she's, for a single piston aircraft, she's quite the cruiser actually. So we're going to be doing an overhead join, standard overhead join when we get to Popham. So we'll be descending down to pattern altitude on the dead side. This airfield's at an elevation of 600 feet and the pattern altitude is 800 feet QFE. So that is 600, round that up to 600, plus the 800, so 1400 feet. So we want to do our overhead join at 2,400 feet. We're at 2,400 feet, so that's dead handy. We'll do our overhead join, descend by 1,000 feet on the dead side for those that are dialing in from abroad. In the UK, our overhead joins are 1,000 feet above pattern altitude. I know that in the US it's normally 500 feet. Happy to debate the respective pros and cons of that. Of course it provides greater separation, but it means you've got a hell of a lot of altitude that you need to lose when you're on the dead side. Okie dokie, looking good. Let's have a quick slurp of wine. I'm conscious that the VR headset is your window into the game because of the nature of the airstrips that I'm going to be landing at today. There is going to be quite a bit of looking around, I'm afraid. What's the on-leg ETA for this bit of the journey? 14 minutes, but that's at an indicated airspeed of as a tracking airspeed of 120. We'll be doing a lot more than that, so nearly 8 minutes in, it won't be too much longer, I would think. And when I land at each of these airfields, I'm going to take the opportunity to show you how great they are. They're all from Burning Blue Designs. As usual, I've forgotten to put links down in the description. I will commit to do that. Please do remind me in the comments if I forget to do that. We're using the beta version of Sim Update 10, using NVIDIA's deep learning super sampling, which I think has been genuinely fantastic for virtual reality users. And there was an update that came out a couple of days ago. I'm sure many of you will know that that the Microsoft Flight Simulator development team have decided to push back the official release of Sim Update 10 because of some bugs that they're squashing, and I think the community fully support that. I certainly fully support that. It's nice to see them trying to get it right. Personally, my experience has been very, very, very positive in this Sim Update. I've been very happy with the performance indeed, and there was an update that came out, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, and I think it's been excellent. Substantially improved, far less stuttering in Sim, very happy with the performance. Some of these airfields from Burning Blue Designs, I was actually suffering a little bit with the performance of them, but that all seems to have disappeared. That is the airfield there, off to our left. So we're going to get the autopilot off and get ourselves set up for our standard overhead join. So doing our overhead join 1,000 feet above pattern altitude. Airport elevation 600 feet. Pattern altitude is 800 feet. So that's 1,400 feet by my maths. And remember, we are doing this slightly skewed pattern, largely to account for the fact that there are 2 runways. Right, so start bringing the power back. And let's lose about 1,000 feet of altitude. It has a very not flat runway here at Popham. Slopes down as you come in for the approach and then rises quite sharply up again, so it will be interesting to see how soft or otherwise the landing is. Start bringing some power back in. We're getting close to our pattern altitude. We don't want to come completely square round. We want to be off at an angle. There or thereabouts. Let's get our landing lights on. There's the airfield there. We're at pattern altitude. Effectively now coming on to the crosswind leg. A little bit high. Okay, start our turn onto our downwind. Very unique designed tail on this aircraft, the Bonanza V35B. It has a very distinctive V-shaped tail, so they've had to do the elevators and rudder in quite a different way. It's known as a ruddervator, and the Coronado, the developer of this aircraft, I think had some interesting implementation challenges. The sim was not necessarily natively set up to cope with V-shaped tails, so I think there's been a bit of emulation that's taken place, shall we say. Yeah, okay, I think we're abeam with the runway. Landing gears coming down. It's like dropping an anchor, dropping the gear in this aircraft. Okay, we start our turn onto base. We're 3 green, the gear is down and locked. Base. We're going high RPM. First notch of flaps coming in. We're in the white arc, and going to start bringing quite a bit of power out. Quite a bit of speed to lose. Using the silos as a marker. We're turning now onto final. Field is in sight. A little bit more speed to bleed off, so there's the silos there. Airstrip is in front of us. A few trees that we need to avoid. That's 80 knots. Getting a final notch of flaps in. Using power to control our descent and pitch to slow us down. We're getting to about 70 knots and taking the power out. Perfectly fine to me. Okay. Getting ourselves off onto the taxiway. Landing lights off, taxi lights on. And we'll take a little quick cruise here past Popham. Lots of love and attention that's gone into this. Pretty sure it's one of these that each time you land, all of the people are in a slightly different configuration, doing slightly different things. But great attention to detail: caravans, motorbikes, cars, some very cool aircraft stationed here. Just park ourselves up for 1 second. It is very warm in here, so I'm just going to have a quick break out the VR headset. Hello to you all that have been saying hello in the chat. Right, get our taxi lights off. Right, next leg of the journey. So this is a little bit more complex, but not massively so. So we are here at Popham, and we will be coming down to intercept the 87-degree radial here of this VOR MID, and up here to this visual reference point here at Guildford, and then across, being very, very, very careful as we get across to Gatwick to make sure that we stay out of its controlled airspace. I know the MID VOR is 114.0. So let's get that dialed in, and we're going to want the 87-degree radial. Which is effectively east. And that saves us having to do a whole heap of timing, etc. The initial heading that we want to fly is the 151. Getting that dialed in. Right, grand, I think we're good to go. Let's get our taxi lights back on. Let's rotate. Let's put the other fuel tank. No, I'm not switching it off. One of the pernickety annoying things about using a mouse. Do you know that you've got to truly obsessive levels of flight simulation when you're actually considering either making or buying some sort of accessory for the fuel selector? Right, let's get going. Stopped manufacturing the Bonanza V35B in 1980, which is bonkers. That's a year before I was born. Love the wood paneling that they've done in here. That's very unique. Texture's great, actually. Not the most expensive payware aircraft in the world, but I think Coronado have done cracking job with it, actually, and pretty good value for money for 14 quid. Right, getting ourselves round onto runway 8. Landing gears down. We've got our flaps up. Runway is sufficiently long that we don't need to do a short field takeoff. The taxi lights are off. Our landing lights are on. This looks epic in VR. It really does look great. Okay, let's get this show on the road. Alright, T's and P's are in the green. Airspeed is coming alive. At 70 knots, rotate. Out to usable runway, landing gears coming up. Wait till we're well clear of all of these obstacles. Okay, 25 inches, 2500, and get ourselves onto our heading of 151. Again, I think we'll climb to an altitude of 2,400 feet. No restrictions. Yeah, we'll be well below that. Of course, the beauty when you're in a real aircraft and you look down and you're having a brief glance at your charts as it starts moving around, you can feel that happening. You have like a sense perception that you've effectively lost when you're in Flight Simulator. Get those landing lights off. Keep pushing the throttle in, keeping that manifold pressure up whilst we lose the density of air. Up 2,400, so we're going to go 23 inches, 2,300 or 2,400 feet, so we're going to level off. Going to get our autopilot on, altitude and heading, and let's get those cowl flaps shut. And effectively we just stay straight here, waiting to intercept the 87-degree radial. So no need to time, we've got that VOR assistance helping us out. Just trying to keep ourselves well clear of... There is a control zone here for gliders. Then we've got a whole heap of control zone here, which arguably, I mean, we could probably go underneath that. It doesn't start until 2,500 feet, but I think better to avoid these gliders. We've got some sort of zones here that's starting from the surface. I think, all things considered, going round these things just feels like the right thing to do. So coming up on our radial, so we'll switch from heading to nav. Overcompensation from the nav there. And effectively we're going to follow this radial all the way in until we hit the VOR, and then we're going to go out on the, I think it's a 006. Again, then we'll use our GPS just to help us make sure that we stay clear of this control zone here, as we are at a higher altitude than that airspace begins at. But yeah, I mean, my overall experience now in Sim is it's really very smooth indeed. Still not hitting 90 frames per second to equal the 90 hertz of the headset, but it compared to where it was when VR first launched, I mean, it's like night and day. I really think they have done a cracking job of getting this very, very, very well optimized. At this point, we've got no kind of reprojection switched on. So this is without reprojection. It's not adding in frames, as it can't achieve a 90 frames per second frame rate. The ground looks crackingly smooth using the Reverb G2, running it at the native resolution of the headset, but of course it's being rendered lower, and then NVIDIA's deep learning super sampling is using an AI algorithm to boost it back up to the resolution of a headset, and it looks genuinely fantastic. I'm really impressed. I think No Man's Sky was the first VR game that I played that had NVIDIA's deep learning super sampling in it. I made a really big difference to that. It's a fantastic game, that as well. Not quite a simulator, but close enough, I think. Many hours lost playing in that, but I was very excited when I found out that it was coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and they have not disappointed. I'm loving the retro colour of this aircraft as well. The particular livery that I've picked looks great. Very 70s. Lots of beige and brown going on. I feel like I should be wearing a pair of corduroy trousers and smoking a cigarette with a moustache. So I think we'll use our heading bug to get us on the 006 radial. The nav is going to go a bit bananas as we get very close to that. As we get very close to that VOR. So we're over on heading now, getting that set up, and then we'll start our turn in, and that is, his deliberate attempt here to avoid the London Gatwick controlled airspace. A little bit bananas. It seems to me that Redhill, as a grass airstrip, is sort of tucked and nestled in so close to Gatwick in the way that it is. I mean, if you look here, there's effectively a corner cut off of its CTR here, to account for the fact that Redhill is there. I'm fairly certain it is the biggest grass airstrip in Europe. It is a fully controlled airport, so that means ATC are giving instructions on the ground for taxi and in air. There's a great channel called The Flying Reporter, UK-based pilot who I think he works for the BBC, or he certainly did. Great channel, go check him out. Did a whole series on different types of air traffic control that you get in these airports, and he did a video on Redhill. Yeah, so you think grass airstrip, you think dinky little bush flying, but actually it's a very busy bit of airspace that they're nestled in under. So 3.8 nautical miles out from the VOR. We're going to start bringing us round, still using the heading to guide us. Just using our GPS as well. One of the things that the MFSS development team are struggling with DLSS is it's making avionics GPSs look very blurred. So I think they're talking about trying to apply some sort of mask over it. It's the way in which the image on that screen is created. Stutter there. Still disappointing when those happen. It's very immersion breaking. I mean, I'd be bloody terrified if I was up in a real aircraft and the entire world stuttered around me. So I think we're now moving away from that vor. Yeah, just suddenly moves too fast. Oh, we've overshot that, definitely. That's okay, no, not a big deal. As we get further away from the vor, that needle will be less sensitive, so I'm not going to chase after it. Do a small correction, a small one only, using the heading bug. Oh, it makes for mightily thirsty work, this. So that as we get further away from the vor, the sensitivity on that needle is going to get less and less. You can see here on the GPS, you can see the Gatwick controlled airspace, which is just immediately to the right of us there. So that needle is creeping back in, no need to do any kind of like wild adjustments chasing after it. It's all perfectly fine. I get a lot of questions about how do I use all of the various controls when I'm in VR. I mean, I do have a camera on the controls. A lot of it's just to do with muscle memory. It's just try not to move stuff. And I'm fortunate in as much that I've got this extruded aluminium sim pit, and that you just get used to where stuff is. It's incredible. And actually, not dissimilar to when you're flying a real aircraft, right? I mean, you want to be looking up and out and seeing what the aircraft is doing, being able to find controls by touch, things like the landing gear and stuff like that. It's quite important to be able to do. Lots of exciting stuff coming in the works. We've got Sim Update 10, which is a biggie. We've got World Update 11, so Canada, with 12 photogrammetry cities. It's all of the major Canadian cities included in that update. Helicopters in November for the 40th anniversary edition. I won't lie, have been starting to look at collectives on the Verpal website. Right, I'm going to get that switched on to nav. We're close enough now. Yeah, really looking forward to flying helicopters. That will be really different and interesting and fun, and a altogether new challenge. So yeah, really looking forward to that, and a whole heap of surprises I suspect in store for us. But how active is the development on Microsoft Flight Simulator? I mean, it's incredible. Right, I think we're going to want to start our turn to the right. So we're going to 9-2 east effectively. I think we'll start that now with our heading bug. Making sure that we stay well clear of the London CTR. It's a London CTA even. We're just using our GPS to make sure we've avoided that controlled airspace, which we have. We're currently at 2,400 feet. We are going to just be tucking in to underneath the London Gatwick CTA. That starts at 1,500 feet. So we are going to want to start descending, bringing ourselves down to 1,400 feet. We're not going to be doing an overhead join at Redhill. Their controlled space starts at the surface. This is Redhill's controlled airspace, starts at the surface and ends at 1,500 feet. That sort of precludes overhead joins at 1,000 feet above that. Coventry, which is one of my favourite airports, which sits under the CTA for Birmingham in an almost identical position, not quite as close to Birmingham as Redhill is to Gatwick, but close enough to still be in its airspace. Okay, so again, thinking about which runway we're going to be coming in on. It's 26 left. We'll be landing at getting that all set in there. Okay. We're taking our autopilot off. Starting to descend. Elevation is 300 feet, there or thereabouts. So we will get ourselves down to 1,300 feet. Get our landing lights on early, I think, given how busy the airspace is that we're going into. And it is absolutely huge, this airport, given that it's a grass airport. You'll be surprised at just how big it is if you're not familiar with it. I actually think we'll stick at 1,400 feet. It's just a bit of terrain around us, so let's keep ourselves well above that. We're just skimming along the edge of controlled airspace here. So we're effectively going to be just joining in on the downwind leg, turning base, then turning final. Now arguably I should be coming in at that at 45 degree angle. That would be a reasonable and fair challenge, but keeping ourselves out of this controlled airspace feels like a more pressing priority. When you get the dreaded instruction from ATC that when you land you've got a telephone number to call, those are words that you never want to hear. Very funny video about Harrison Ford, the actor who flies aircraft, if you're not aware, once got the instruction from ATC to call the tower because he had landed on a taxiway. Had the cheek when it happened to say, was there supposed to be an aircraft underneath me on the runway when I came in to land? And air traffic control had to inform him that I'm pretty certain that's the airfield over there. Yeah, had the cheek to get grumpy. In fairness, was very humble then when he was given the instruction to telephone a number. But been several incidents with Harrison Ford flying aircraft. When I get down onto Redhill, I will temporarily come off VR and just engage with the chat for a minute. So yeah, that's definitely the airfield there. I will just spend a few moments touring you around this airfield. It's massive, and it has a massive taxiway, so it will take a couple of minutes, but it would be remiss of me, given that I'm about to land there, not to show you the cracking job that Burning Blue Design have done with it. That's looking good. So a little bit above pattern altitude, but not a lot. We're abeam with the runway, so landing gear is coming down. Landing lights are already on, yes they are. Okay, let's turn base. Base leg, going high RPM, and our first notch of flaps coming in, giving ourselves a bit of trim, slowing our descent. All looking good. Start losing some of that airspeed. Yeah, I think we'll start turning final. Looking good, airspeed's looking good. We're on the glide slope. For a grass strip, it has a pappy, which is a novelty, a bit below the grass, the glide slope, bit below the grass, bit below the glide slope. So we'll put a bit of power in, bring the nose up to slow ourselves down. Power for descent rate, pitch for speed, coming back onto the glide slope. Taking that power out on the glide slope, right. That's 80 knots. Final notch of flaps coming in. Controlling our descent rate with power. Up on 70 knots, we're looking good. A little bit on the low side, a little bit of power coming in, not a lot. And going idle into our flare. Not bad.
Well done. Smooth landing.
Thank you, FS Realistic. I'm increasingly not convinced about your estimates of my performance in landing. I will just whiz you around here quickly. As I say, I think it would be remiss of me not to do that. Vacate the runway here. Landing lights off, taxi lights are on. One more leg after this, folks, into Rochester. Quite an interesting approach into Rochester. It's got some quite uneven terrain. You have to come in quite shallow, and then you have to lose quite a lot of altitude at the end. This is, I mean, the perfect combination of gut-wrenching nausea. The Bonanza V35B has a habit of oscillating when she taxis. Anyway, combine that then with Redhill's extraordinarily uneven taxiway, and you strap a VR headset on and grab yourself a bucket, see what happens. Oh, she does oscillate. It's one of the things that the developer made sure was included. The attention to detail on this airport is fantastic, and you know, this was only released a couple of days ago. I think it's great. You know, all the way from, we've got some containers, and I think is that, I mean, that's some sort of oil or gas container or some sort of skip over there, all the way to the very uneven ground there. But look how epic that is. I mean, again, you won't be getting quite the scale of this as you look at it in VR, because I mean, it's effectively the same sort of scale that you would see in real life. You know, I mean, there are tarmacked runways that aren't anywhere close to the scale of this. It is an absolutely huge airport. Definitely one that I need to add to my bucket list of places to fly into for real. Challenging though. Lots and lots of ATC stuff to worry about. Yeah, nice attention to detail here on the buildings, etc. Let's just get ourselves parked up here on the grass for 1 second. I think I might have to do a full proper review of Redhill. I think it's worthy. Can't do absolutely every airport that gets released, otherwise it's all I'd ever do, but taxi lights coming off. Right, quick second break from the VR headset. Hey folks, how you doing? Bit warm, got terrible VR hair and a bit hot and sweaty. Right. Alexandra, hello. Powered by Nathan, hello. How you doing? Dazzy T Arab, evening mate. Evening to you. How you doing? 69, okay. Interesting messages. I'm not sure how legitimate all of these may be. It seems awfully odd that somebody's advertising a new AI dating app. What is Will? What's the aircraft? It's the Bonanza V35B, just released as the latest local legend, available on the marketplace. It was developed by Coronado, but published by Microsoft. Very cool, first time in VR with MSFS last night. This is Bruce. Good morning from New Zealand. Morning, New Zealand. Another island nation. I hope you're well. More interesting dating stuff. I think we're going to have to consider some form of moderation in the future. Derek, wow, very smooth experience. You must have a nice video card. Unfortunately, on Xbox Series X, we don't get this level of performance. No, and there's limited memory on the Xbox as well. Yeah. I appreciate the frustration. I know that the Microsoft Flight Simulator team are working hard. It's not just the performance, it's things like the WASM issue, not being able to make use of more complex aircraft and stuff like that. But, oh, Los Angeles, very nice. Mike Kelly, just a note, say thanks for the content. You're very welcome, Mike. Thank you for watching it. You guys are really you are the people that make this channel happen. So thank you very much. Jamie, tuning into your first live stream here. Thank you for your reviews of the honeycomb stuff. As a result, I've recently picked up the Bravo. A good choice. And put your pre-order for the Alpha V2. Nice. Yes, and of course that will be Xbox compatible as well. I did pre-order one of those myself, which probably sounds pretty bonkers given I've already got an Alpha Yoke, but I mean purely for the purpose of a review on the channel. Of course, DJ Truckus, greetings from Mexico. Holla. I've been to Mexico on holiday. Beautiful country. Really enjoyed that holiday. It was many years ago, but yes. Good to have you all. A nice spattering of people from around the world as well. So that's always good to see. And yeah, this isn't. It's a Sauvignon Blanc I'm drinking. I normally drink New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, but it's a Spanish one this evening. So, cheers. Right, I think we need to crack on with the last leg of our journey. So I'm going to get myself a little top up. We will get ourselves back into VR. A short hop now from over to Rochester. Again, taking very good care to make sure that we stay out of the Gatwick control zone. Just checking the sound's working. It is. Jamie, I did just spot before I left, but I'd muted my mic already, that you were tuning in from Vancouver, Canada. So welcome. Right, grand. Okay, last leg of the journey. Relatively straightforward as a leg, actually. I mean, it's pretty well straight from Redhill to Rochester. The complexity comes from staying underneath this the CTA for Gatwick. So 1,400 feet max, giving us 100 feet of headroom, flying on a heading of 71 degrees. Okay, grand. Fuel tanks are largely even. Which is the best way for us to taxi? So we're up here. Doesn't look like that's particularly accessible. Can we cut across the grass there? We probably shouldn't. I think it wants us to go all the way back round. I'm not going to lie, I'm quite unlikely to do that, I would think. So that's the helipad there, so we are just here. And I think the route, yeah, there's the helicopter there. I'm going to route us round heli parking area. I think ATC's given us a clearance to cross runway 18, pop across the other side, and use... In fact, it's 08 we want to take off from. So that's fine. Actually, we want to come back the way we've gone. We've come. So the point is mute. Right, taxi lights are on. Parking brake is off. Oh, thus begin the oscillations. Oh. Oh. Perfect combination of an aircraft that oscillates and the world's most uneven taxiway. My wife, who is not great with motion sickness at all. I mean, this is a woman that plays Phasmophobia and vomits. It's hardly the world's fastest paced. And we're not talking in VR. We're talking flat screen monitor now. But yeah, I've encouraged her over the years to try and have a go at Microsoft Flight Simulator. She tried it once, and yeah, it didn't end well. But I do think getting your VR legs is something you have to persevere at. The first few times I played VR, it left me feeling a little unpleasant, but you do get used to it. So, I think we want to go off here. That's D3. So no, that's D2. A little bit uneven, this bit of the airport, and it is advertised as such. Yeah, we crossed over a little bit too far. That's all right. Oh wait, right, that's the one. Right, flaps are up. Taxi lights off, landing lights are on. Cow flaps open. Let's go. T's and P's are in the green. Takeoff power is set. Airspeed is coming alive. 70 knots, rotate. Now to usable runway, landing gear is coming up. So let's reset our timer. We're on the correct course. We're descending no higher than 1,400 feet, keeping ourselves below Gatwick's controlled airspace. Right, leveling ourselves off at 1400 feet. Getting our autopilot on. Altitude and heading. We're going to leave those landing lights on, I think, for a second. Get those cowl flaps closed. We're going to stay at 1400 until we're well clear of that controlled airspace. Let's start having a think about Rochester. So Rochester's 500 feet. Pattern altitude is 1,000 feet above that, I believe. So we're going to want to be 2,500 feet for 2,500 feet for the overhead join. Descending then down to 1,500 feet on the dead side. Staying relatively close, a relatively tight circuit, I think, to try and account for the high terrain. It's quite easy to kind of drop behind a hill and lose track of where the airport is, so we're not going to do that. Okay, I think we're coming clear of Gatwick's controlled airspace. We can get those landing lights off. Oh, that VR headset is warm. Wish there was some kind of cooling solution available for the Reverb G2 in the same way there is for the Valve Index. I'm just going to rotate our fuel tank. We want to be on the fuller tank as we come in. So it doesn't feel like it. It feels like we're in the countryside. We're actually remarkably close to London's airspace. And the density of payware airports that are available around there, I mean, is incredible. And the sim really used to chug. But whatever it is that Microsoft have done, or Zobo I should probably credit more, with the latest release of the beta update for Sim Update 10, it's made the performance way better. Right, we're going to start climbing, so let's get the cowl flaps open. Let's go 2,500, 20 inches. Get the autopilot off, and let's climb up to 2,500 feet. Okay, coming up on 2,400 feet. Coming up on 2,500 feet, so going 23 inches, 2,300, and leveling off. Autopilot coming on, and altitude hold and heading. Grand. Okay, that's looking good. Right, let's get the airstrip dialed in, so we've got that reference. It's going to be a runway 202 left, landing today at Rochester, our final destination. Oops. Moving the wrong thing. Okay, good. Not a long journey to Rochester at all, actually. I do find when I'm flying these the aircraft with the GTS 530 that I do miss the GTN 750 or the GTS 750 NXI. It's a substantially better bit of kit, but don't underestimate how much these avionics cost in real life. I think a second-hand 530 is several £1,000s. Not a cheap bit of kit at all. About 100 nautical miles that we've flown today. 3 landings, 4 airfields, all grass airstrips. Quite a bit more difficult to identify from the air than your standard tarmac runways. And many of these have got no lighting at all. We seem to have found ourselves inside quite a bit of cloud. So I can actually see the airfield just in front of us. I do often re-watch these streams after I've done them, and I do find I can see much further in VR than is visible to you on the screen, which is sort of frustrating and disappointing, but I think also sort of brilliantly illustrates how difficult it is to convey the experience of flying in VR on video. Right, landing lights coming on. Let's get that autopilot off, getting ready for our standard overhead join. Incredible scenery, great part of the world. Not that I'm patriotic or anything. Okay, try and maintain that altitude. There's the runway just beneath us. So taking the power out, and here in the UK, for a bunch of fairly banana reasons, our overhead joins are 1,000 feet above pattern altitude, so we do have a lot of altitude to lose. The key is to not gain a ton of airspeed in the process of doing it. It's looking alright. I'll try and keep these patterns to the west and noise abatement procedures here in Rochester. It's okay for an overhead join, but you want to sort of be that away when you're flying the actual pattern. Again, look at the attention to detail on that. That's an incredible bit of paywear. Okay, a little bit high, but not a lot. Right, and landing lights already on. Stay relatively tight, so I'm going to start my turn onto downwind now. Try and lose some of this speed. Let's get that nose up. That's looking good, nice and tight. That's what she said. Alright, we're a beam with the runway, so landing gear is coming down. Very nice gradual descent. We'll start our turn onto base. Nice and early. Gonna stay above this ridge here. Looking good. Okay, we're base going high RPM. First notch flaps coming in. Losing speed. Starting our turn onto final. A little bit high. It's taking the power out. Good, that's nice. So we've got this 2-tier dual carriageway. We've got the tree line that we need to clear. We've got a load of lampposts we need to clear. Going idle, we are fast. Final notch of flaps going in. We've got some speed to lose, but we should be okay. That was a nice touchdown.
Wow. That was a great landing.
Yes, thank you. I was quite pleased with it. Getting the flaps out. And landing lights off, getting our taxi lights on. A little touch of the brakes. And again, another great scenery. All of the airports that we've landed at tonight are payware airports available from Burning Blue Designs. I will leave a link to their website down in the description. Do me a favour, buy it direct from the developer. Don't buy it from Orbex. Don't buy it off the marketplace. Go direct to them. They get more dosh. They work hard on this stuff. It's not easy to do. And creates a little bit complexity for us as end users because we have multiple places that we need to source stuff from, and if updates come out, it's not quite so easy to do. But they're relatively small companies, some of these developers, and this is an incredible bit of scenery. All the way to, it's not just the airport itself that they've modelled, it's the local buildings, it's the KFC back there, the home base that we've got there. You'll all be familiar with KFC. Home base is like a DIY store based here in the UK.
The level of detail compared to the stock airports is sensational. Significantly deepens the immersion for me. All the helicopters and everything that they've added in, it's great. I'm going to take her all the way round to the hangar. Looks great. Would be nice to be able to see inside the windows of some of these buildings, but then that's the trade-off for having something that's reasonably performant. But welcome here, folks, to Rochester Airport. We'll park her up here, ready for push back into that hangar. Alright, parking brake is set. Cutting the fuel. And we can lose the kneeboard for now. Getting the fuel tanks are off. Apparently this lorry is going to reverse into us. Much rather you didn't. He just avoided us. Are you drunk? Have you been drinking? I'm not sure that you should be operating that vehicle. Deary me. Right, avionics are going off. Don't know why the sim always does that when I switch the avionics off. Battery and alternator are off. Crack our window. Crack our door.
Oh, very warm indeed. Apologies, folks. 69 mega. I really wish you'd just stop leaving comments. They're not helpful, and I don't think anybody that's interested in flight simulation is particularly interested. Matching video gaming. Yeah, 69 mega stop. Indeed, I couldn't agree more. I will, folks, commit to getting some sort of moderation on the chat for the next one of these, because I've not had that before. I don't think I've been big enough to have worried about it before, but perhaps maybe we've arrived at that point. The Gamer just watched your top 5 flight sim controls video and saw you were live. Well, welcome. Unfortunately, you've joined us right at the end of the stream, but do go back and watch all of it. It's been a fabulous stream. I've had tons of fun. Do go check out Burning Blue Designs. Great payware stuff. Do go and check out the Bonanza V35B, available on the marketplace by developer Coronando, published by Microsoft. I feel like times are truly great in the flight simulation space. There's tons of stuff going on. There's more things for me to make content about than I could possibly ever think to do. But thank you so much for joining the stream. It's been a great pleasure to have you here as always. I hope you're well wherever in the world you are. Stay safe in the skies, and I will see you in my next one.